Well, let me tell you about today's session, right? So we're going to talk about a framework for teaching language. Have you studied any other frameworks during the course? What?
PPP and text-based presentation.
Okay, so PPP stands for? Present, practice, produce. Okay, so today we're going to talk about another framework, which is TTT. What do you think this stands for? Test, teach, test. Right, okay. So what I want you to do now, I want you to talk with your partner. How much do you know about test, teach, test, right? And then we will talk together. So let me have both of you together here. Work together, both of you and both of you. Okay, right. So, what information have you got from your friends about TTT or test, teach, test?
We've got there are three T's. The first T stands for test one, and the second T stands for teaching, and the third T stands for test two.
Okay, so a couple of tests and teaching in the middle. Okay, wonderful. What else?
And then in the first test, we test the students to see what they don't know, and then in the we teach the stuff that the students don't know, and then we test them again with everything.
Oh, okay. I love that. So you mean in the middle we focus on the things that the students have difficulty with. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, what else?
I think also it's a good framework to help students to see their progress.
I love that, yeah. Very true. And why do you think it's so easy for students to see their progress when we use test, teach, test?
Because they will compare their answers for the first test with their answers.
Okay, interesting. Want to say something, Hans?
Yeah, we agree on this. I think it works more with students who have previous knowledge to build on.
I love that. Right, yeah. Okay, so sometimes it can be challenging for weaker students or students with poor knowledge. Okay, lovely. So, as long as we're talking about test, teach, test, so let me give you a test. Speak with the devil. Right. So I have some questions here about the test, teach, test framework. Okay. And what I want you to do, read, okay, and answer. Don't worry, it's not a real test or real exam. Just go quickly, see how much you know about test, teach, test. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's do that. Okay, my friends, right. Now, I want you to help each other compare your answers, see whether you agree or disagree. Let's have the three of you together and here. Okay, let's have the three of you together and both of you here.
Not like criticism.
Okay, right. So let's check together. So question number 1, what's the primary purpose of the first test stage in the TTT framework? Yes?
Number C, to observe learners' existing language use and diagnose gaps.
Yeah, very good. So, okay, to know how much students know about, the language point you're teaching. Right, love that. 2, why might TTT be less suitable for lower level learners? Or what?
They may struggle with unknown target language in the first.
Yeah, indeed. And this might also make them feel what? Good or bad? Bad. They might get frustrated, right? Cool. 3, what's a key benefit of using the same task in both test stages?
Yeah, it makes improvement clearly visible.
Yeah, exactly. If the first test and the second test, the tasks there are of the same nature, becomes crystal clear. Okay, 4, why is the second test stage important in the TTT framework? Yes.
It checks whether learners have improved after instruction.
Yes, true. So it helps the teacher measure, okay, how much improvement there is after teaching is over. Good. And 5, what's one criticism of starting a lesson with a diagnostic task instead of a context?
It can be less engaging or memorable than a story test.
Yeah, like if you go back to the previous input session, okay, about text-based presentation, usually when there is a text at the beginning or a story, it's more engaging than giving students a test, right?
Check how about number D here as well.
It creates a non-communicative, not necessarily, because remember, in a text-based presentation, students either listen or read. Okay, so these are receptive skills. I mean, so there is no also communication here. So it's not here, it's not there. But you can always make things more communicative by allowing students to compare and check their answers together. Fair enough, right? Now, moving to number 6. In a CELTA grammar lesson using TTT, what's the first task designed to do? Yes, Sakr?
To help the teacher identify knowledge gaps.
Wonderful. Yes, good answer. And moving to 7. What about letter B? Let me see that. It can be test learners. No, I mean, it's not about testing learners' memory. It's more about testing their knowledge, not their ability to remember. Okay. What makes TTT more responsive to learners' needs compared to PPP?
It's based on emergent language and real-time observation.
Yes. And what is emergent language? What do we mean by this term? Emergent language. No.
Language in use.
No. No. Students' language. Okay? And from students' emergent language, I can see their errors and mistakes. I can see how good they are, and I also can see their mistakes and errors. So that's why we say it's based on emergent language, is you test what the students know. And then it says here also, and real-time observation. What do we mean by real-time observation?
Observation that the teachers do.
Yeah. You're monitoring? Yes, and you see what mistakes they're making right in front of your eyes. Okay, good. 8. Who is credited with the earliest documented version of the TTT framework?
It's designed to show the improvement in message and
No, I'm talking about 8. Is it Jeremy Harmer, James Scrivener, Henry Morrison, Scott Thornberry? No, no. No, not Scott Thornberry, no. Yes, it's Henry Clinton Morrison, Henry C. Morrison. Okay, this is the first writer who actually published a book, okay, that is considered, okay, according to many people, the first actual book where TTT or test teach test was introduced. It was called The Practice of English Teaching for Secondary Students, as I remember. 10. What's a potential disadvantage of TTT? Oh, it's 9. 9, sorry. Yeah. How is the final test typically different from the first in a modern TTT lesson?
It's designed to show improvement in usage and fluency.
Yes, okay. So the focus in the second test is about usage and also fluency, right? Or we can say accuracy and fluency, yes?
Is there an old TTT and modern one?
Oh, it's, again, because actually what we do with frameworks, because if you are going, let's say, to follow test, teach, test, then you're going to start by giving students a test directly, then there will be no leading, okay? And then after that, you will teach them, and then you will test them again. Maybe you're not going to give a freer practice. But the modern version of TTT is that there is a leading at the beginning to attract the students' attention and get them interested in the topic. At the very end, you will focus on accuracy and also fluency, because you're using it for teaching language. So what we do here on the CELTA, you can call it, it's the latest modern version of TTT. Right? Yeah. Now let's go to 10. What is a potential disadvantage of TTT for novice teachers? Yes, Arwa?
It requires planning based on unpredictable student outcomes.
Exactly. And this is difficult for a novice teacher, okay? Because a novice teacher, one of the problems that novice teachers face, okay, is that they cannot adapt as quickly as experienced teachers do, right? But experienced teachers, they can change everything on the spot according to students' needs. That's one of the features of, experienced teachers. Right. 11, what's the main focus of the task, of the teach phase in TTT? Yes?
Clarifying target language based on learners' needs.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And it's very important based on learners' needs, because usually you clarify language in PPP, you clarify language also in text-based presentation. But what is the main difference? In TTT, you do that based on learners' needs. Okay, right, so let me put this aside for now. And let's talk mainly, my friends, about test, teach, test. So, mainly, we have main stages in the test, teach, test framework. What would be stage number 1? Very good. And leading will be for the sake of what?
Generate students' interest in the topic.
Exactly. So let's say generating students' interest in the topic of the lesson. Okay, lovely. What would be stage number 2? Right, test 1, right. And what's the aim? What's the rationale?
To test students' knowledge.
Yes, to test or testing students' existing or previous knowledge, existing knowledge of the target language. And I love that. And spotting their needs or errors, whatever. Okay. Teach. Now, what's the rationale behind this one?
Teaching the most difficult words that you notice from the test one.
Okay, so clarifying the areas or the linguistic areas students need. Okay. Test 2.
Check the accuracy
To check. 2. Okay. Check in how much students improved. To check how much students improved after the teaching stage. And my friends, usually in test 2, we want to cover 2 things. Who can help me? Accuracy and fluency.
So we can add another controls practice or less controls and freer practice.
Very good. So we need here, with accuracy, we need what? What sort of activity? Control practice task. We need a control practice task. And here, fluency, freer practice task. Now, and of course, after the freer practice task, we need to be doing 2 things. Content feedback and language feedback. What is content feedback? Who can tell me? Content feedback, what is it? Excellent. So content feedback is about? Ideas. The ideas the students discussed, right? And language feedback is about?
Phrasing and also correcting mistakes.
Yeah, so mistakes are related maybe to meaning, pronunciation, and form. Very, very, very good. Right. Okay. Lovely, jubbly. So what are the advantages of the TTT framework? Can you give me some?
Students can observe their progress immediately.
Okay, so students can see their progress clearly. At the very beginning, I wasn't very good answering the questions. But now, by the end of the lesson, I can answer a lot of questions. So it becomes crystal clear for students that they have improved. Good. What else? Okay, so let me just write these down. Let's have this corner here. So let's say clear improvement. What else?
Focusing on the linguistic areas according to the student's needs.
Excellent. So focusing on students' needs. Like, I don't teach anything, I teach what my students need, which is like very good.
That's why it might take time, because I'm targeting what they need.
On the contrary, if you teach everything, it takes, like imagine that you have a vocabulary lesson where you have 20 words. Now, the normal thing you would go and teach the 20 words, but not in TTT. In TTT, you will only teach the ones that are difficult for students. You might end up teaching 5 or 6 or 7. Of course. Oh, are you saying that? Oh, I thought you were saying taking time. Okay, yeah, so time saving. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. What else?
It's mainly student-centered.
Well, yeah, but again, I mean, you can say the same thing. Also, you can do it with PPP in the modern version of it, right? It's good for strong students, especially when you have a group of students and they're really strong, okay, and every time you're teaching them, okay, they look like they know everything. See, so you want to get them challenged so that they're more, attracted to your lesson, they're more involved. Okay, this is very good with them. So it's good for strong students. Now, what about the disadvantages of, test, teach, test?
Very difficult for novice teachers.
Okay, yeah, I want to say it's challenging, So for a novice teacher, you need to be ready. I mean, I always say to novice teachers, I say to them, prepare everything. Yes, you're not going to teach everything, but be ready for everything because maybe at this stage of your career, it's very difficult sometimes to anticipate what would be challenging for your students. So be ready as if you were to teach everything, but then teach what the students need. Okay, so yes. Okay, challenging for novice teachers. Something else?
Yes, it's also challenging for novice students because they already lack the information that you want to test them on test 1.
So it can be frustrating for some students. So frustrating or demotivating at times.
They will start precision by failing the test.
Yeah, especially if the teacher, remember what I said when I gave you this test? I said, hey, it's not important, it's just, if you don't know something, no problem. But some teachers would, give the students the feeling that this is a serious test. Oh, it's not a serious test. You just want to discover what they need. So don't make them feel like this is a real exam and make them stressed. Okay, right. So I would say it can be stressful. Something else?
I would ask, at this stage, the teacher uses self-discovery.
Oh, that's a very good question. In the teaching stage, you can do it either by explanation or guided discovery or self-directed discovery, right? Of course, we try to get away from explanation as much as we can. We try to leave it when there is a need for it. So guided discovery is great. Guided discovery is when you ask students, elicit from them the answer, and you run the discussion. Self-directed discovery is when you design activities for students to answer. You can do that as well. So you can teach meaning through an activity, pronunciation through an activity, and also form through an activity. So here in the teaching stage, it's no different from the presentation stage in PPP. It's no different from the clarification stage in the text-based presentation. Same thing. Now, also, there is a disadvantage. Some teachers, who are not used to the TTT framework, they would start with the leading, go to test 1, and then test 2. They forget the teach part. They just answer the questions for the first test with the students, and then they forget to focus. So they just ignore it. And what happens to those who ignore the teaching part? they don't pass the bloody teach and practice, you know, I mean, what would happen? I mean, they didn't teach, right? So be careful. So, okay, so the teaching stage might be lost. Like, Okay, right. So now, my friends, I've got here some statements about test, teach, test. 10 statements. I want you to read each carefully and decide which one is true and which one is
False.
easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'll do the first one with you. So, the first one says, the first test stage in TTT is used to focus on a student's fluency. False. What's the correct one? Yeah, I mean, existing knowledge. It's not about fluency. It's not about speaking or writing now. Okay, good. Take your time. Work alone. Okay, dokie, right. So, let's change the partners. So, Hassoun, I want you to take that seat next to Muhammad. Right. So, I want you to check with your partners, but if a statement is false, you need to correct it, right? So, together, both of you, and here.
You mean the same, for example, definition, the same definitions?
The second test stage always uses a different task from the first one.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the questions themselves. For example, definitions. So the same definitions?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the task in nature. Like, does it have to be the same? Does it have to, like, if you started a test with true or false, does the second test have to be true or false? That's your job, you know, I'm just saying, that's what it meant. Okay, right. Okay, everybody, let's check together. So, second one, the TTT approach encourages teachers to adapt their teaching based on learner performance. True or false?
True, yes.
Yes.
So performance refers to needs to.
Yeah, I mean, what they do. I mean, if they do well and they do badly. Okay. The second test stage always uses a different task from the first one. Not always, yeah. That's false. So sometimes it can be the same. Sometimes it can be different. It's up to you and what you see. And because again, yes, if it's the same task, like if you start with MCQs for the first test and then the second test MCQs, what's the beauty of that? Improvement is very clear. But there is also a disadvantage. It might be boring because it's the same task. So now as a teacher, you weigh things and then you decide where you would go. Okay?
So the second should be more more challenging from the first one?
Well, I mean, probably, yes, after teaching. But again, so how I look at it, I mean, it's, will the students be happy with, having the same task? Okay, so that's, you know, because you will be with your students in the context. If you feel it's going to be boring for them, then change it. I mean, I'd say that. Move into number 4. TTT is especially helpful when you're unsure of your learner's existing language knowledge. Yeah, right. So we said for number 4, we said yes. Okay, students' existing knowledge, okay, because sometimes you might have this grammar lesson that you want to teach to your students and they say, am I going to cover those 6 functions? And how much should I spend on form? Sometimes you have these questions in your, but again, when you run it in a teach test way, I mean, it becomes clear for you. Oh, I mean, I don't need to focus much on form. I can be really quick with it because they know everything about it. But maybe they have serious problems here with usage or meaning, and then I need to focus more on that. Right. Moving to number 5, the teacher stage of TTT is mainly about giving the students extra homework. Yeah, it's about clarification of meaning, pronunciation, and form. And moving to number 6, one of the benefits of TTT is that learners can clearly see their progress within a single lesson. Yes, that's true. 7, TTT is not suitable for teaching vocabulary, only grammar. Both, yeah. Okay. And functional language and pronunciation. Teachers using TTT must always follow a preset syllabus without deviation. False. Exactly. That's the idea behind test, teach, test, that you can adapt and you can change. Right. 9. TTT supports a student-centered learning by focusing on real-time language gaps. True, yeah. 10. The original concept of TTT was developed within the field of English language teaching.
I have an opinion. My friend told me that this is hemp, but it's okay. So I think it comes from medicine if I have a problem. So I go to make a blood test, then I take medicine, then I make it again so that I can make sure.
Yeah. Well, actually,
This is logical, but
well, actually, Henry Morrison was in the field of education, not specifically English language teaching. So this one is actually false, because we said that the man who developed test, teach, test is Henry Morrison. Okay, and this guy was in the field of education, not English language teaching. Okay, right. So now, my friends, I have, about, how many quotes? 6 quotes by famous, ELT experts, like Scott Thornberry, Jeremy Harmer, Scrivener, a lot of people. Right, and all of them are speaking about? Yeah, test, teach, test. What I want you to do, take your time, read every quote, try to understand the quote, and then because you will discuss it later with your partners. But for now, all I want you to do is read and understand, okay? Take your time. Okay, now I need 2 big groups, so let's have the 4 of you together. Can you move your seat here? And both of you, please move your seats here. So let's have a group and discuss the 6 quotes, everybody. You can just. Oh yeah. Okay. Fine.
Or what do you think problematizing? Yeah, it's, of course, problematizing means making problems. I think problematizing because you did not previously learn to the lesson. You have
Process why do you think problematizing we can especially in new
at the
teachers.
same time. Yes, of course, because you're not previously ready. You should be ready for the stage before. You should be flexible. This is it's positive for the students, negative for the teacher because you're not ready. You may find mistakes you're not ready to help with. Flexible, adapting, yeah, I think
Done. That's right. Okay. Good.
But maybe the whole process of the two tests
that's why.
is ongoing.
Done here. So let's go back to the U shape. So back to a U shape. Okay, so let's have a look at what is Scott Thornberry said. Test each test is a more reactive and problematizing approach than PPP, allowing the teacher to respond to the learner's immediate needs rather than anticipating them. What's meant by that? What does it mean?
I think the word problematizing refers to the teacher than the student. Problematizing means what? Because while the teacher is working, so he may find problems that he's not ready for. Like, for example, the students may need something that is opposite of what the teacher planned to do. So I think it's maybe problematizing with the teacher more than the student.
I have a different opinion on
Yeah.
that. I think here, reactive, I think problematizing here is a positive word because it's conjunct with the reactive. And here I think because it helps the teacher spot the problems that the students have, and then it gives them the opportunity to address these problems.
Yeah, it's actually here you say reactive. It means that you will react to students' problems. Okay, so the actual teaching stage is based on what? On problems discovered by the teacher through monitoring during the first test, right? Okay, good. Now, Jeremy Harmer says, unlike traditional teaching sequences, TTT allows for a sharper focus on what the students actually need rather than what the teacher thinks they need. What's meant by that?
You need to teach something that the students need, not what mentioned maybe in the syllabus.
Yeah, it's not what you anticipate, it's actually what is happening. Okay, let's, observe and watch and see, right? Now, Jason Anderson, he says, TTT has survived for nearly a century because of its formative assessment focus, long before the concept of formative assessment was even named. I need someone to explain that to me. Yeah?
Formative assessment is assessing students' needs, not like giving them a test, not to give them grades A, B, C, or whatever, but to get information from this test. So we want to like diagnose their needs and acting accordingly.
And why do we, thank you so much, why do we call it formative? Because we have summative assessment and formative assessment.
Summative, I think, happens at the end for grading students, but this one happens with them.
Yeah.
It may happen many times.
And we call it formatives because
At the beginning,
not just that, it's because it can change the form of your teaching. That's why I call it formative, because you change your teaching based on the information you collect. That's why it's formative. It changes the form of what you do, because every time you run formative assessment, you discover students' needs, you adapt your teaching. Okay.
The three stages, or the main two tests are
The first one is mainly, yes, the formative one. Still, yeah, I mean, because we don't believe that students can overcome all their problems in one lesson, because yes, the things might be apparent to you in test 2 that they still need, some help with some other areas, and this is something that you can do in other coming lessons. Jim Scrivener says, the TTT framework gives you the flexibility to teach what the learners really need, not just what the book says you should teach. I guess we were talking about this, before this session. Okay, so during our discussion, me and you, for the assisted lesson planning, you're teaching collocations today. So how does this go with this quote here?
For this one, like when you first teach the students, and then you monitor to see what the students learn, and then you move forward to the teaching the lesson according to what you know about what the students learn.
Yeah, like you don't go and teach all the collocations you have in the course book, right?
It's also making the teaching more personalized.
Of course, yeah, indeed. David Weller, TTT allows learners to notice their own gaps, understand the rules, and try again, making learning visible and motivating. Why visible? Why does he say visible?
Because he makes trial and errors, like he will compare the first try with the second try, and then so improvement is clear.
Excellent. Yeah, good. And finally, Tom Kittle, Test Teach Test empowers teachers to be diagnosticians, responding to what learners demonstrate, not what's on the syllabus. What does that mean? Not, being a diagnostician instead of following the syllabus.
I think this improves the role of the teacher, not just a performer, but he just even a designer of the...
Yeah, like the teacher is someone who analyzes, diagnoses, and finally decide on what should happen. Okay, now thank you so much, my friends. Let me say something here. Yes, you want to say something?
I want to say something?
Yeah.
I've not... Is it TTT in TTT?
Exactly. Well spotted. So what I was doing with you, I was following what? The TTT framework in teaching you TTT, right? Okay, because again, let's, go through what happened. I started with what? Who remembers? Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of leading when I was asking you about, the frameworks, PPP, TPP, and then TTT, right? And then remember when I gave you this handout, what was that? It was the first test to see how much you know about it. And then what about this? Or that was the teaching stage. And then what about this? Test 2, it was which part? It's called a kind of a control practice task. And what about this one? It was a kind of a free discussion where you spoke about, again, and this is what we expect from you, when you are using the TTT framework. With the exception that in the teacher stage, you will be focusing on what? Language, not methodology like here. So meaning, pronunciation, and form based on a student's needs and your observation. Okay, so any questions? Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it's time for your break, and then 15-minute break, and then we'll come back.